Hello everyone, it's Mike here, and today I'll be showcasing my Zephagamon deck profile. And I think it's a really fun green deck, just because you're able to, of course, just be able to unsuspend a whole bunch and able to at least deal some damage here and there, because you do get easy access to piercing, and overall, just again, with the upgrades from EX7 and just getting the starter deck, I think it can be a pretty strong enough deck, and of course it's going to get way more support in the future. And I've been showcasing this on DCGO. It's a free platform made by Hongzero and his team, so if you want to check it out, go check out his channel and whatnot. And of course, if you guys do like my content, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. It really does mean a lot. And now let's just get into the deck profile. Obviously, let's just start with the eggs, and I just run 4 of the EX7 Fluffymon, and this is, a really solid egg just because, it's your turn gain memory when you do a Digimon battle, and that can definitely help you keep turn with, other memory game inherits and just kind of control the memory like that. And I just, of course, like enough to where I think it's the only egg you really need in a deck, because you can also kind of beat over most things anyways. Now let's go start off with the rookies, and I was just running 2 Palmemon for BT9. Players can play Digimon effects, and while this one can kind of mess you up, I still think it's really useful in the format just because it can stop stuff like in Ultramon and whatnot, because they can't play off the dual tamer and just probably other random decks here and there, so I think it's a fine enough card. And I also run 2 Terrio just because, again, you do want enough green tamers where I can kind of justify running the deck. And the all-turns, while the Digimon suspended gets plus 1k, can also be a little bit helpful in the deck. And of course, I won 4 of the EX7 Pedromon, simply just because, again, it's another name for your stuff, liberators and whatnot. And the fact that I think the cost reduction effect is super useful, because you essentially go into any of your champions for 1, and I think that's just really good, especially if you combo off with training to just accelerate to your stack. And the inherit, again, similar to Fluffymon, but in this case it's all turns, so it's just fantastic. And then I just run 4 of the starter deck 18-1, and simply as just a soldier, really good, and the inherit is a 2k buff, so again, when you're doing stuff on your turn, it's really easy to just beat over stuff, as I mentioned, and just really solid card overall. And now let's just get into the champions, and for stuff, I just run 4 of the Galemon's. And I actually do really like the fact that this is also full cost, because it's still not the worst thing to just toss them turn 1. And of course it plays out shorter if you have 1 or less, so that's obviously really solid. And the inherit is basically just the same thing as this, a Pedromon, so obviously you can gain a decent amount of memory if you stack inherit rules like this. And this Zephagamon, another name, along with the fact that the security effect is kind of decent, and while it's completely up until RNG, if you do get it, you're actually able to get a free sword or just get a free tamer and whatnot, so I think that's just really good. And of course, just 2 metal carbonate ones, just because, again, it's a hybrid for game, and I think a lot of the other ones are just okay, because Beomon searches for hybrids, which you don't really want to, and Obamon, I believe, is like about 5k, so this one can dodge ruin mode, and this can also evo on your level 4s for cheap. So say if you're kind of breaking, you can just stack evo on top of any of the Galemon, so that can be kind of helpful as well. Now moving on to the ultimates, and of course I just run 4 of each of the Galemons. And I usually like going into the EX7 one just because it can offer you up protection a lot easier in comparison to the Star Deck one, just because, again, it's until the end of your opponent's turn, so I think that can easily just trigger off and they just can't really touch it as easily, so I just like it for that. And it does have Vortex, so that's kind of nice because you can use it to be over smaller bodies, and overall just a really good ultimate for the deck. And then we have the Star Deck 18-1. Again, this one's still fine just because it's also on play, and the fact that you can play out, say, a Avon on board, basically your entire low end for the most part, if you suspend one of yours, which I can imagine going wide can be kind of nice. And the your turn on both of them are pretty much the same, just unsuspend, which is just really good. So that way you can obviously Vortex, be able to unsuspend, still get the blocker, and just fantastic and hit it overall. And again, these are pretty much the older ultimates I think you need for the deck anyways. Now let's get into the megas, and in this case I was running 4 of the EX7 Zephagamon and 3 of the Childlike one. And I think this one's just really good for mostly just the damage output because it natively has +1 security check, and the when attacking, when digivolving on once per turn, so obviously you could use it to suspend off numerous stuff, and they'll just suspend your own bodies if you combo off with this, because you can free play and then obviously suspend the guy you free played to bomb deck something. So overall, really good card. And I guess the only downside in my mind is that it's full cost, but since it does a lot, I think that's fair enough. And I only won 3 of these Childlike ones just because, again, I just do like the damage output of this, and at least you get protection from this Grand Gale one. But this one's still a really good card, especially up against like some matchup like Magnemon and Shadow Mother, where the DP thresholds can get pretty big, and combo off with this along with say the Childlike, Galemon and the Childlike Pedromon, you can obviously get some pretty big numbers, so it can help against those decks, and the protection still can be pretty nifty. You can trigger on your opponent's turn and even the start of your turn, so I think that's just really good overall and a fantastic card really. But again, I just like this one just a little bit more, but again, both are really fantastic megas. Now we have the Tamers, and in my case I was just running 3 of the Childlike 18 Shoto and 4 of the EX7 one. And the more I started to play, the deck, I started to like this one just a little bit more, just because there's a lot of nice niche cases where you can obviously just use this to help swim for game and whatnot, or maybe just redirect an attack to something else. But again, fine enough Tamer, I think, but definitely the EX7 one is way more important and whatnot, just because it helps you gain memory, and definitely gives you blocker and piercing, so that way you could obviously deal some damage, because if you play the deck tribal or as tribal as you can, you don't really get piercing as easily, so this can kind of help you be able to do the vortex stuff, along with be able to at least do some damage or whatnot. And since you don't suspend your guy as well, you're able to more effectively get off the blocker, and you obviously do want to see this one way more often in comparison to the memory setup, because if you see like 2 of the memory setup, it's just not as important as seeing like 2 of this one. And then in terms of options, I just run 2 of the vortex residents, and then for trading, basically main reason is just search card plus free evolution for the most part, because you don't really run, at least in my case, anything that's higher than 4 evolution cost. But overall, really solid option. And then trading, just another search card and reduce evolution costs, and that's pretty much it. Now let's go over some cards I would recommend. In terms of Digi-Eggs, it's pretty much just Marron for the buff, Gummymon for the draw if you have a green Tamer, and this Fluffymon so you can suspend down a Digimon with as much or less TP, so that way you can possibly suspend most stuff if you ever need be. And I'm only putting this Kawaga here only because of the inherit, just because you gain another memory, so again, another memory gain effect. Tamers, at least the EX2 one, I think could be a little bit funny, simply because when you would play Green Tamer, gain memory, and there is a pretty substantial DP buff in terms of it being plus 2k for the inherit, so I think that could be kind of nifty as well. And the Lotmon is just here for the fact that you get Alliance, so you can obviously Alliance swing for 2 to 3 checks depending on which Zephagamon you have out, and I think that could be really funny. And of course, this Pedromon is here just because, again, it's another name, plus it's a 3 cost to spend on the body, so that could be kind of nice as well. And the inherit is plus 2k, so again, more DP buffs is always good. And in terms of some champions, I think the BT3 Sting can also be kind of nice, just because, again, similar to this, memory gain, inherit, and it's a 1 cost evo, so I think that could be kind of nice in terms of just building up to your line. The Complementarian is, again, similar use case, but the fact that it's all tones, I think, could also help it out just a little bit more. And of course, the Pruno Gilmon is also here just because, again, another suspend effect, along with the fact that you could get piercing as well, and you could get kind of big with this guy, so I think it could be a little bit useful. And the Monochromon from EX7, I think is also kind of nifty, just because it's another cheap way to get piercing, and I think there are some other stuff from the Star deck that also get piercing as inherit, but I think this is a 1 cost evo that makes it slightly better. And I also think that the promo Kawagamon can also be kind of nice just because again, you can on-play it just to stop something from unsuspending, and 2k buff is also kind of nice. And these 3 ultimates I only put here simply because they all share the same inherit, and I think they're all pretty useful in different use cases, just because this one can stop stuff from unsuspending. This one obviously can have some protection in terms of being unaffected by opponent's Digimon, and this one can de-digivolve stuff, along with just being able to stop being balanced to hand or deck, or can delay with effects. And I think this one could be just a little bit more useful, but again, I think all these have their own different use cases, and that's why I pretty much put them there. And I also put in the Mega Gargomon A simply because I think it's a really solid level 6 for the deck if you don't want to run as much copies of this Zephagamon, and of course just being able to spend down 2 different stuff, and the Tamers is also really nice. And this is another similar reason to why I put in this, simply just because you can spend other bodies. In this case, you can delete Tamers, so I think that can just come up a little bit more, but overall, these 2 are also generic level 6s that you could run if you want less copies of the other Zephagamons. Now let's move on to options. I think Giant Missile is still a fine enough removal one, simply just because again, suspend something, bomb deck something else, and then stop something else from unsuspending, so pretty good overall. And you could pretty much just put any other green removal like Grand Soul, but again, this one still works fine. I also think Double Typhoon is also really nice, especially if you run like the Terrio Lotmon stuff, and it still grabs your green Tamer, so that's pretty nice overall. I think Wind Slicer is also pretty nice just because it suspends anything that's level 6 or lower, and then if you really want to, you could say suspend one of your own guys and then unsuspend the Mega. Hopefully it would be the Childlike Zephagamon to proc some protection, but overall fine enough option. I also think Tropical Venom could also be a little bit funny to that way give your opponent's Digimon lose your memory, so that way you can kind of gain some extra memory back with your Vortex stuff to help you keep tone and whatnot. And that's basically my Zephagamon deck, and I've been enjoying the deck quite a bit just because it's just classic green and being able to suspend bodies and pretty much swing over with them, along with some ability to bomb deck. And again, it's just a really fun Liberator deck, and again, I'm excited to see the future support, in this case mostly just with the new medieval Galamon and whatnot. And again, let me know your guys' thoughts down below, what you guys think of the deck list, and what again you like to run in the deck. And again, if you stayed to this far in the video, thank you so much. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe so you can stay tuned into my future videos. Again, see you guys later.